From Cypress Radio in Cypress, Texas, you've tuned into the Special Ed Section 504 Radio Hour. And today is another edition of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And my co-host today is my associate, good buddy, COPA member, Pat Freeze. Say hello, Pat Freeze.
Hello, Pat Freeze. No, hello, everyone. Thank you, Lewis.
Yeah. Well, we haven't done this for a while.
Right.
And, gosh, it's probably been 6 months, 8 months since we've done this or longer. We've run through we've had a lot of cases this year. And I haven't seen anything really good out there. Mostly what I've been seeing out there has been pretty bleak from what I've seen from schools and other entities. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay.
What I've seen, what I've seen, all the cases that I've had have been resolved to successfully, and I'm not talking about due process cases. I mean, just when parents ask me to come to an IEP meeting as their advocate, I think everything has worked out the way the parents wanted it, without any yelling and screaming. We just, I've developed a new way to kind of negotiate, been working on my negotiating skills. So I don't have any. Well, sometimes I have to really work harder than other times, and sometimes it takes longer. But nothing really, really ugly that stayed ugly. I know you and I have had some discipline cases. And so, yeah, I don't have anything really ugly or anything. I can't think of anything really fantastic either. So it's just kind of rocked along for me.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. The way it's been for me is that really to be able to, I'm finding the schools really haven't been doing things on their own, just, through the normal IEP process. The only way that I've been able to really, and when people call me, generally there's problems.
Right.
Otherwise they wouldn't engage me. And the only way I've found that really has been the way to get to some modicum of, to some degree of that, that we can work something out is actually by having to file for due process and to do that, to get them to be making decisions. I'm finding that the IEP team meetings, I find so often and been it's been really incredible where it's been incredible. I mean, it's been bad. I've found IEP teams that don't know exactly what the hell they're doing.
Oh, we've been seeing that for forever, as long as I've been doing this before,
Right.
I'm sure.
Right. And it's, and the problem is, it's one thing if I'm there and I can say, well, I guess we need to file for due process. And here in Texas, advocates can do that. Other states may not be able to do that. We're not lawyers, we're advocates, but we can represent families in matters here in Texas anyway. Some other states you can't. So just take that with a grain of salt. You can't in California, you can't in Nevada, and some other states. But point is we can do it here. But I've found really the only way that we've been able to try to get anywhere is really having to file on the districts. And Frank, it shouldn't have to be that way, but it is that way.
Some districts really are. One of the districts, and I won't say the name unless you ask me to, but one of the districts that I complain about almost almost always on your show. I had they have a there were a couple of not sped directors, but from the department that would come to the IEP meetings. And I was lucky enough to have a couple of them who really kind of got it and really would tell me afterwards, hey, I just want to do what's right for this kid, would have a conversation with me afterwards, or say, email me at home, let's talk about this. Really wanted to resolve things. Unfortunately, those two ladies and some other people out of the SPED department from this school that I have a lot of difficulties with left, have gone. This is in the school, they're gone. So I don't know what's going on over there, but it was difficult enough there. And I was glad that I had these ladies who were willing to work with me. And now I don't know what I'm going to face.
Where is
there.
it? Where
Clear
is it?
Creek.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the, that's been a perennial problem in that district. And although last case I came to, I did see some movement, but that one's been a problem. On that same vein, one of the school districts that we very often are on there, and it's the interesting thing is the law firm that represents Clear Creek also represents Conroe, also represents Spring Branch.
Other problem areas.
Yeah.
Well, there are more than one. There's more than one law firm that represents Clear
That's
Creek.
true. That's true.
But the one that historically has represented
that historically. That's historically. Well, in Conroe, we had a case that went to hearing. It was really just a train wreck scenario with that case.
Lou, is that the one where the student had to go to the Harris County alternative place? Is that one?
No.
Oh no, you're talking about another one. Well, I can tell about that one later after you do this.
Okay, that's fine. No, what I'm talking about is we had a student that was dyslexic. It was clearly dyslexic. Although the district patently refused to consider the student for dyslexia under special education. And they were providing it vis-a-vis 504 without really any accountability. And the student really was stagnating in their progress. The child was also was in the spectrum, clearly within the spectrum, with sensory issues. He also had a tendency to elope, and the district.
I'm sorry, tendency to what, Lou?
To elope.
To elope. Okay.
Yeah, and the district refused to consider the child, even though parents brought in outside assessments first, and then they did an independent IEE, and still said the child was in the spectrum. And it really did matter in this case that they identify. I mean, they had said, "Oh, he's ADHD." No, this kid was clearly in the spectrum, and it impacted his behavior most assuredly. And they had patently refused to do that. And the kid was sensory seeking, and there was even a video that was taken where a big school resource officer basically manhandled the kid and restrained him and carted him off out of the cafeteria when he was clearly showing sensory seeking behavior, and it traumatized him. And what the this was brought to the attention of the captain of the police department, or the police chief, I should say. And they said, well, yeah, he didn't follow protocols, and they brought over a gift to the
What?
house. Yeah, they brought over a peace offering to the house of the child as a
Was
gift.
this the school police department? The ISD PD? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I said it was school resource officer. And so they even did that. And that was like, well, I think you just admitted guilt for doing that. And anyway, we went through a several day hearing. I believe it was a 4-day hearing that we had. And then had testimony on the dyslexia, took testimony from behaviorist, psychologist, and actually this was at the end of last year, and we actually ended up in one of the only hearing decisions that was won by the parents this year. And it was a huge, it was a huge victory. And the thing about it is the school was, even after, and they didn't appeal it, but even after they won, they were still trying to find ways to not comply and make it difficult with the parents. So Conroe, shame on you. I don't know how you get your reputation for being a decent district, but for kids with challenges, you guys suck. Big time.
Mine is at the same district, Lewis. And do you think, I mean, you won that due process case.
We did.
And then it goes back to the school, and they don't want to do what they're supposed to do. So is it the special ed director or the assistant special ed director, whom I've had a lot of dealings with, or is it the attorney? I mean, how does that, who does it filter down to that says, nah, we're still not going to do it?
Well, by the way, I want to give a shout out. Hank Bostwick argued that case, and he did a tremendous job.
He is amazing.
He's now out in North Carolina, but he still does cases here in Texas. But Hank Bostwick just did a phenomenal job on arguing that case. I'm glad to say I was part of the legal team on that. And but he did a masterful job on it. But
he did. He's got a brilliant legal mind. He's also just one of the people.
The what?
He wouldn't like that. He won't me say he's nice, but he is. He's a very caring, genuine person.
He has compassion.
He has
compassion. No, he has compassion. He
For
has
these
compassion for these kids, and that's a really,
he does.
Really strong.
And well, I guess just by being a lawyer, you do this, but I mean, in court, he's so articulate and just it's a.
He's a great trial. He's a great trial attorney.
I love watching him.
It really was. It was. He was. Well, unfortunately, I was unable to view that hearing, even though I was part of it, because they called me out as a witness, which the other side called me as a witness. Well, no, put me on the witness list. So that would keep me out of the hearing to assist the other side assist the petitioners, in that case. So I was blocked out of that for the whole hearing, and I couldn't watch, but reading the transcript, reading what went down, it was, we had all the planets aligned. We had the right case. We had the right experts, which is crucial. This is really important if for anybody involved in these cases, you've got to have the right experts. It's one thing about having, and these were people that performed, well, 3 of them performed IEs and 1 just acted as an expert. But well, that's not true. 2 of them acted as experts. I'm sorry. So forgive me on that. But the issue is, it's one thing of somebody being able to write a report that's clear and concise and recommendations that are very clear. But the other side is how they present themselves under questioning. And so to have the balance of people that can do, the experts that can do that, that's what you look for. And I don't know that it takes time and understanding for you, and you really need to know your experts before you use them. As a general rule on independent evals, I don't like using the district's list, because a lot of times they seem to favor the districts, or they don't want to testify at all in those hearings, or they're just not clear enough in their testimony. So that's just a little sidebar when you're in DP. I know I'm getting off the trail here on the good, bad, and the ugly, but it's really important to know that. But that was a huge win for the parent side. But the district is still playing games. The district is still playing games with the parent. So again, shame on you, Conroe. You guys suck. That's a basic, I can't put it any other way. That's just the way it is. And your question is, who is it? I think it's the director. I think it's the
Assistant
culture. I think it's the culture, if you really want to know, because this district has been problematic for as long as I've been doing this, and I've been doing this now for 27 years. And it's a culture that's come down from one director to another. Maybe the superintendent's part of that. Maybe it's a board issue. It's all the above, and it's also the lawyers they keep. The lawyers tell them, we can win this case, let's do it, and then litigate, and they really, I have no idea what goes on behind closed doors, but I would imagine they're telling the parent, they tell the school board, listen, these parents, all they want to do is they want to redirect money from the district, and they really are just a bunch of crybabies.
And that's not what the lawyers are doing? Lou,
that's what I believe that's what they are saying to their client. I'm not in those meetings. But I cannot imagine that they're not casting the parents as being reasonable.
And also they're probably saying, I don't know how they justify paying all that money to the attorneys. We know a couple of districts that have in-house, but these are outside law firms that district is hiring. But I think part of it is probably they say, well, if we do it for this parent, then the next one's going to want it.
Well, that's it. They use it as a watershed. They make it a watershed issue every time.
Yeah.
And the issue is, and it's not about the kid. It's about, well, it's this, watershed. In the meantime, the kid who suffers, it's the kid.
Right.
And and the truth of the matter is, there's a certain tilt toward the districts anyway. They tell the district, we can win every time. We can win this case. Let's litigate it.
And the chances are they will. The momentum is with them. Yeah.
Well, they are, but they certainly didn't do it. They certainly didn't do it in the case we did.
They've made it almost, I would say, almost impossible for parents to exercise their due process rights. It says in the thing they give them at at the end of an IEP meeting.
They're procedural safeguards.
Procedural safeguards. If you can't come to an agreement, you can ask for a mediator or something else and file due process. So supposedly parents can file due process. Lou, it's almost impossible because the districts use tax money. They use parents. They use the money that we pay them to hire attorneys to fight against us. So yeah, but I wanted to go back.
The decks are stacked, but the point being, Conroe is a serial
offender,
offender, as well as Spring Branch. That's also another district that just will basically, it's our way or the highway.
Right.
And they just extremely litigious, and you really.
And it's the one I was Clear Creek,
firm.
Conroe, Spring Branch, all represented by the same firm, all with powerful litigators. So yeah, careful guys, if you have a student with that needs special education.
Just know what.
Stay away from those districts.
That's right. If you have a choice of where you live, but just know that if you you probably will have to hold their feet to the fire to do that. Now, you said you had a case there that you wanted to talk about.
Well, well, it's still more about Conroe. I'd rather just pass on. What I want to talk about is when we were talking about experts. This came up this week, and we can talk about the case that we did resolve, and we should give kudos to that district. But mother has severely disabled child that she spends almost all of her time taking care of. The child has, I'll just tell you, a shunt, a G-tube, seizures from cerebral palsy, just every kind of issue, blind, all kinds of issues. So mother knows this child. She's been taking care of him for, his entire life. He's still an elementary kid. I don't want to give, specific details, but he's still an elementary guy. Right. And she's saying he has to have this. He had, if he chokes, he's got to be turned up, and all of these specific things that she does for him.
It's a full-time job for the mother.
It is. And they have home health care nurses that come at night or sometimes during the day if a parent has to go somewhere. So and the insurance pays for that. I mean, this really
is for 2 children now.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. Actually, there are 2 children, twins, and they both have the extreme disabilities, born very, very prematurely, weighed like 1 pound each. Okay. So all the disabilities that come with that. So they were in school, and the district trained the teacher and the 2 paras, and they were in a self-contained classroom with, I think, 11 other children. Oh, and also they have the diaper issues. Just quickly, they have to be checked every 2 to 3 hours to make sure they're hydrated. And then that's on the P side. And on the other side, they can't control any of that. So there's, big issues in that. And when that happens, their standers or their chairs have to be cleaned. They have to be changed. I mean, it's just a lot. So the teacher and the 2 paras did this for 2 boys all last year. If I was a parent of some of the other kids, I'd be saying, hey, when is my kid getting their education? What's happening on that? But so Lou and I did file for due process. And we'll tell you about that in a minute, how it worked out. But this mother keeps telling the mother saying, yes, but they've got to have this, and they've got to have this, and at this time, and at this time. And I finally had to say to her, and she was giving me doctor's letters that say this and say that. And I was trying to put it together. I said, this is what she wanted. Ideally, she wanted 2 nurses, one assigned to each boy in the classroom the whole time they're there, so that the teachers can teach, but yet the boys are medically safe. Because if she has if these kids have 24-hour care, it's not like when they go to school, they're magically not disabled, right? They're the same kids that need the same level of care, even at school. But the school wants to, they want to rethink that and second guess the doctors and all that sort of stuff. So I said, if this is what I said to her, it doesn't matter what you feel, what you think, what you know. And even though parents are part of the IEP committee, we all know that they have to hear you, but they don't have to believe you or do what you say. I said, unless you have a doctor's letter that backs up what you want, we're not going to get it. We're not going to get it. So that's what I want to say about experts. They're so important, not only if you go to due process, but just when you're trying to get with the district. I'm sorry, parents, what you think and feel, it really doesn't matter to them.
It's what the experts may say. It just is.
Got to be experts. And that's where when you ask for an evaluation, that's the district's expert. Okay. If you get into a disagreement with them with only their evaluation, they win because that's their expert. That's why if you disagree with any part of that evaluation, you must request an independent evaluation where you choose the evaluator, the district pays for it. And there are a lot of things around that. They'll try not to do it and ask you, what exactly do you disagree with and stuff like that. You don't have to tell them. But anyway, and Clear Creek was very regularly denied independent evaluations. Oh, we've looked at the records. You don't need an independent. And even I defended a case where they actually sued the parent. The district, Clear Creek, sued the parent because they didn't want to give them an independent evaluation. So I guess what I'm saying is expert. You have to get your independent evaluation if you want to have any power whatsoever in that IEP meeting. And even then, your expert's opinion, they have to, quote, consider it. Consider it. I have it written down somewhere what the actual definition of what IDEA says the definition of consider is. And it means they have to give it, I can't even tell you what it says, but it doesn't.
They have to discuss it.
Yes, it doesn't just mean they read it and say, no, we're not accepting it, which I had someone at Clear Creek tell me. We looked at it, didn't go over it in the IEP meeting, said, no, we've looked at it and we're not doing any of that. I mean, it's just amazing. So that's about independent evals and experts. That's what I wanted to say.
No, I think it's a vital issue.
And then we're able to get to compromise for the two boys, the twins. The district is going to give, it's two boys. Mom wanted, each boy had said, they're individuals. We need an IEP for this kid and an IEP for this kid. You can't look at them as a group, but we kind of did when we resolved it. So they're going to have an LVN and trained staff person assigned to each. One boy gets a one-to-one, the other boy gets a one-to-one. It may be the trained staff person, it may be the LVN, but the LVN would be there to do assessments on either boy. And everybody else in the classroom, all the adults in the classroom are also going to be trained. And because we had an issue one time when the school nurse, one of the boys had a seizure and the school nurse was not there. And well, she says she was, but she wasn't. So anytime the school nurse is not going to be there, they're going to try to get a substitute school nurse. And if they cannot do that, they're going to let mom know so that she has the option to pick the boys up. So really, I think it worked out, Lou, don't you?
I do. And I mean, I don't want to mention the name of the district,
No.
but we were able to work through that. But be honest, the only way we were able to work through it is because we filed for due process.
Mm-hmm.
That is what nudged them to get where we were. But I feel good about the settlement at the end of the day.
Mhm. I do
Um,
too.
by the
Parents were
way,
happy. Mhm.
this, just a quick note about settlement agreements. Um, really, you really should read the statute regarding that, regarding settlement agreements.
Mhm.
If it comes out of a resolution session, or it comes a settlement agreement comes out of mediation,
Mhm.
those are treated as contracts. Okay,
Don't give
as
legal advice. Don't give legal advice, Lou.
well, I'm just saying that's what's no, but if you read IDEA, that's what
Okay.
IDEA says. It's treated as a contract. And so anything outside of that isn't treated as a contract.
So
So
you're
that's
talking
something,
about unofficial negotiations, that sort of thing?
right, unless it comes out of one of those two venues, really, IDEA is very, very clear that it really, unless a settlement agreement that came directly out of a resolution session or a mediation, isn't treated as a contract. Just to keep that,
Wait a
just
minute.
so that you know.
An agreement that comes out of a resolution session is not a contract and not
No,
enforceable?
no. If it comes out of a resolution session
It's
or a
enforceable.
mediation, it's enforceable as a contract. If
Mhm.
it's not, if it doesn't come out of one of those two scenarios, it's not.
Well, okay, and that's after we file due process. But if the parent negotiates it before we file due
That's what I'm
process,
saying. That's what
then
I'm
it,
saying.
well, no, but then if it's in the IEP, that's really
That's
a
okay.
contract in itself,
Well,
right?
well,
I've always said an
there's
IEP is like a contract.
there's some discussion whether an IEP really is a contract or not.
Ah,
Okay.
mhm,
I don't want to get into some of the
mhm.
court cases here in the Fifth Circuit, but not necessarily.
Okay, okay,
Okay. That's just my understanding.
okay.
Anyway, but that's the only time that I know of that really is a contract, if it comes directly out of a mediation
So
or a
had filed,
resolution session.
after we had filed and the attorney for the other side said, we can maybe settle this informally, that would have not have been a good thing, right?
Well, you have to think about who you're negotiating with.
Mhm.
I don't believe that attorney would have.
I know, but just generally.
You know, it would be better if somehow a mediator was involved
Mhm.
somehow. Okay, and like you can do all your dirty work prior to it and then have it finalized through the mediation. Then it came out of the mediation.
Yeah, yeah.
Just an FYI on it. Okay, all right, so I want to switch gears and I want to talk about some other districts now. Okay, I want to talk about the Houston Independent School District. And that's one of the largest urban school districts in the country. Okay. And they are an absolute disaster,
Mhm.
an absolute freaking disaster. I have a couple of cases that have really that really weighed on me. One is I have a classic case of a twice exceptional student. And I'm telling you, the kid's really, really smart. He's now 16 years old. He has 127 full scale IQ,
Wow.
127. As a matter of fact, he's tested out of his um, math, out of math and English classes. He was like as a sophomore or freshman, I think, or freshman or sophomore, he was taking fourth year level, the highest level math classes that they provided in English. Although they said, well, you still have to sit through those other lower level classes to get the credit. And it made him take all of these. I mean, he could prove his um, he could prove his
Competency.
competence. He could prove his competency. In fact, even in the board policy for the district, it said that other than providing, other than having a credit by exam, the student would have opportunity to show, should have an opportunity to show the principal that they could do it, they could accept the credit for those lower level courses. Principal wouldn't do it.
What, did they want his butt in the seat for money purposes or something?
Probably. But this
Mhm.
kid was so far and above brilliant, I mean, it was kind of pointless, but anyway, that's the thing that was going on beside there. Okay, so they didn't even follow their own board policy. But okay, so you have a kid that's real. Oh, by the way, his fluid reasoning was a 147 standard score.
Wow. And for those of you that don't know, between 85 and 115 is average. 130 would be a full standard deviation above that. So this kid is almost 2 standard. Did you say 143 or
147 for his fluid reasoning?
Over 1, 2 or 3 standard deviations. I mean, genius.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking like a Doogie Howser. I mean, this kid was
not Doogie, Doogie.
Doogie Howser. Doogie. Oh, that has a different meaning. Sorry about that. Right. Anyway, but here's the thing. But so he's brilliant. There's no question about that academically. He doesn't have behavior issues, but he has no social skills at all. And really, he doesn't bathe regularly.
On the spectrum?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, even the school admitted that he was on the spectrum, but he had no educational need.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. He keeps to himself, and he doesn't work well with others. I mean, one of the most important things today in the corporate world is working as teams.
Big deal.
Yeah, big deal. Well, he does all the stuff on his own. And the testing that the school did was done primarily, and some that we did was done primarily during COVID. But there was testimony that he had difficulty with social skills with his friends. And although the teacher says, well, we didn't see that. And all they see is what they see in the classroom, and he answers questions, but he isn't working with anybody on any team projects. So they refused to remediate his social skill deficits or his independent living skills. I mean, as a result, this kid, as brilliant as he is going to end up graduating to the couch. Dad says he wants him to just go ahead and take the test and graduate early at 16 and start going to Rice University. But he's not going to have the skills.
Without some social skills, and they're not going to teach him at college. Oh, Lou, it happened to my own grandson. It's very similar. Super, not probably that smart, but no social skills. And he went through a program where it was through Texas Workforce. He got a job at the hospital that was a partner with Texas Workforce, and he went through all the different departments at the hospital, but his social skills still weren't there. And so after a year of that program, nothing. He still is not prepared. So he's 3 or 4 years out.
And eventually it's going to come to him that he's isolated from the world. And here and the district's own, and they're, I'll call out people that I really have concerns about. There's a school psychologist there by the name of Dr. Crossman that's been there for years, and she totally time and time again does not find kids that are qualified, and she's really, in my opinion, problematic. And I don't know how she continues in that particular position. But the issue
how
is
are you going to resolve this?
she found that the kid was in the spectrum,
Mhm.
but there is no educational need. Even though
Wow.
our expert found, yes, the kid's in the spectrum, and yes, there's an educational need.
So
But they
she
didn't.
maybe she's calling educational need academics.
Academics,
Right.
yes,
That's not all that it is.
that's exactly correct. And
Mhm.
it's really, to me, I know what's going to happen with this kid.
Well, can you
It's,
file? Can you file in a way?
well, we're not, well, I'd rather
No.
not discuss
Okay.
that,
Okay.
but it's just, it's,
So this is a case, I would just say to our listeners, this is a case, I don't know if Lou's going to file or not file, or what's going to happen with that. But if, parents have their expert, district has their expert, district, their say goes at the end of the day, unless you do file due process, or unless you can, I don't know what you can do, twist arms or send roses or something. But the parents have to decide, are they just going to let the kid graduate early and go to college and just never develop social skills, or somehow develop them
I'm sorry. And so
Mhm.
what they did is they placed the kid in 504.
You are kidding. Are they going to give him a social skills class, even a lunch group that meets, so something he can make friends? No. Oh my
Oh, well,
goodness.
he can join the groups at school if he wants to.
Yeah, they're there. He can join. That is so sad. So very sad. At least my grandson, I don't know about this. My grandson, they have a big family, so he has siblings, that he has
No
learned some
siblings with
social
this.
skills from.
No siblings with this family.
Mm.
It's really terrible. Shame on you, HISD. Well, let's talk. So HISD, you've got big problems.
Oh, they know that.
Okay, and then let's talk about another case. This is currently being litigated, but we have an 11-year-old nonverbal boy. He is of Chinese, Chinese,
He's Chinese.
and has an
He's
intellectual.
American, pardon me, American Chinese?
Well, parents from China. Okay.
Does he, if he
No,
were
he's
verbal?
nonverbal. He's nonverbal, and there's the Chinese is spoken around the house.
Okay.
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 But he has an intellectual. He's nonverbal, and he has an intellectual disability. The districts failed to provide him with an effective toilet training plan. While they said there really isn't any problem, he doesn't take bowel movements at school, so he can't, at 11 years old, he can't have a bowel movement and wipe himself and do the necessary hygiene that he needs to after having a bowel movement. But they say everything is hunky dory. This kid is 11 years old.
But have there been instances where he did do that at school and came home?
Never did. No, but I think he holds it. Well, he's had one accident. I think he's had one accident, but I think he may be holding it, but they haven't done anything. They haven't offered, they didn't,
Well, what is the district's responsibility in a case like that, Lou? And
in-home training.
So at home,
training.
Does he do it properly at home?
He does not. He needs a lot of assistance.
Okay,
and he needs in-home training.
And that is because, and I'll tell our listeners, that's because the district is required not only to teach our children academically, but they have to prepare them for further education, the workforce, or independent living. This kid, if he can't take care of his toileting needs, is never going to be able to enter the workforce. So, or independent living for that matter, for very long. So yeah, they do have the responsibilities of addressing the whole child, not just not just the brain for academics, but the whole child.
Yeah, and they haven't done anything on social skills for him either. I mean, so they're just
As
not,
soon as a child is diagnosed with autism, whether they're on,
well, this kid's not on
which
the spectrum. He's not on
I
the
know.
spectrum.
Oh, he's not on the spectrum?
No, he's not on the spectrum, but he is intellectually disabled.
Okay.
But here's some of the things that were recommended
Mhm.
on his
Evaluation.
evaluation. Let's see, they had a staff to student ratio of 1-to-1. That's what he needed as his primary form of instruction.
Mhm.
He needs that 75% of the time. Well, he need 1-to-1 for primary, 1-to-1, 75% of the time in small group for of the time. He needed 1-to-1. And then he needs small group for 25% of the day at a 1-to-2 student ratio.
Is this the district's eval or an independent?
Independent.
Independent, okay.
And the staff to student ratio for maintenance was 1-to-3. They're not doing any of that. They're babysitting this kid.
Wow.
Okay, let's see. He needed a
Do you know
modified.
what the ratio is in the classroom now?
Oh, no, I think it's like 8 students or something like that. They don't have a clue. They don't have a significant, they don't have a decently trained teacher in that classroom. He needs visual supports across environments provided to parents. And of course, he needed social skills. Not doing any of that. Just, they're not doing any of that. See what else they need. They need training for staff. They need training for assessments to determine appropriate assistive tech, extended school year. Oh, and they give them a cookie cutter extended school year. This is the
We know
type of
about
kid.
that, don't we?
This kid needs extended school year for the entire summer.
Yes. Oh,
Because
I know.
everything, because all his skills are emerging.
The first due process case that we did together, the big component of that was extended school year. So I think you and I both know about extended school year back and forward. And in Texas, in Texas, all they have to say is that it's the regress, it's loss of the skill, regression, and recoupment. And I point out to them all of the all of the Supreme Court cases, or all of the cases that talk about that, and all the other factors that are to be considered, like emerging skills. And they seem surprised, but at any rate.
Yeah, well, I mean, this kid has all emerging skills, so he qualified, but he really needs the entire summer.
Yeah,
he's got so many skill deficits. It's not even funny.
And that's
he needs.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they're not providing, effective OT therapy for him. He needs a sensory diet. He needs physical therapy. I mean, they're just, the question is what did HISD do right? Basically nothing.
Wow.
HISD, you suck. You just do. You don't, you're so large. One hand doesn't know what the other is and is doing. And then you have people that come in they have some middle level managers come in that basically toe the line and make it difficult for parents. They
should divide that district into quadrants. Go right down I-45 for the north-south, and go down right down I-10 for the east-west, and you'd have 4 quadrants. Put a superintendent in charge of each one of those.
Look, the question is, what did they do right? Nothing, in my opinion. And so they basically were babysitting this kid 7 hours a day. 7 hours a day.
Elementary.
And what's worse is that this is a family of Asia that has limited English proficiency there. And they have difficulty understanding the system in this country. so they really have difficulty really understanding what's going on. Of course, they provide interpreters, but the issue is, they're taking advantage of
Mhm.
immigrants.
Absolutely.
Shame on you, HISD, for doing that, for allowing this to happen and taking advantage of this family. And God knows how many other families they're doing it to.
Yeah.
It's just an absolute disgrace. Shame on you, HISD. You suck.
Yeah. A lot of Hispanic families, and I've had a lot of those clients, and you have too, where there might not even be an interpreter. And the parents, a lot of, because culturally sometimes if the parents don't speak English or only speak a few words of English, they're not going to ask questions. They just take it and that's it. So
Yeah.
our dear friend Mr. Bostwick was trying to get something going.
Yes, he
on
was.
that.
It is. Yes, and that's and Hank fighting the right battles. Hank is absolutely
Yes.
doing that.
Yes.
Okay, now I want to switch gears. This is for the last part of the show.
Okay.
I want to talk about the Texas Education Agency and the State Office of Administrative Hearings.
Mhm.
This is really a problem. We have right now, if you want, as we were talking about before, if you want to hold the school district accountable, the only way you really do these days is to really by filing for due process. That's the only way you have a chance of doing
Mhm.
that. Now, unfortunately, we have a broken system here in Texas. We have 11 hearing officers, with some being fair-minded
Mhm.
and others that are clearly biased toward the school. I'm not going to call out names of the particular hearing officers, but it's really a problem. The Texas Education Agency and the State Office of Administrative Hearing has done absolutely nothing to weed out those hearing officers that are clearly biased, which is undermining the due process system in this state. Now, and basically, because of that, they're failing our kids.
Mhm.
Both agencies are complicit in doing this, in this particular failure. And I'm telling right now, I'm calling on the Texas legislature to enact legislation to remedy this failure. They're just not doing their job as a watchdog. Shame on the TEA and the State Office of Administrative Hearings. Here's where the problem lies. If you don't get a hearing officer to rule for you, and it's not an easy thing to do, but if you don't, and it gets appealed to the federal district court, what we've seen is happening is that the federal district courts in recent decisions have been basically rubber stamping what the hearing officer ruled.
So for us, that's the Fifth Circuit, right?
Well,
We're in Houston.
Correct. We're in the
Uh-huh.
Fifth Circuit. So if somebody loses in a administrative hearing, in a due process hearing, it can go appeal to a federal district court. What we've been finding is the appeal to the federal district court has basically been rubber stamping the decision of the administrative hearing officer. And then what we found, when that happens and it gets appealed again to the Fifth Circuit, they again rubber stamped what the lower courts did and what the hearing officer did. Part of the reason is because, well, I'm using a legal term, de novo, but they have original jurisdiction in the administrative hearing, and that's where most of the testimony, that's where most of the testimony
Mhm.
was taken. Now, there are cases where you could have new testimony in federal district court. That doesn't happen all the time.
So you're saying that everything that comes out in the original due process hearing in front of the hearing officer, that's the testimony that goes to the next court or however high up it goes. That's what comes in.
Well, there are sometimes you can get additional
Mhm.
testimony at the federal district court level, sometimes.
Mhm.
but not
The
all
case
the
I
time.
worked on, the case I worked on recently, we did. It was a 4-day trial in the federal district court, and all
Still
New
lost.
Testament. We still lost. All new testimony came in, but we did lose. And I was going to say, when we're talking about these hearing officers, Lou, they're supposed to be independent. When we make a request for a due process hearing, we ask for an independent hearing officer to hear our case.
Impartial.
Impartial. Yes. Sometimes we get it. Sometimes I don't think
Well,
we do.
we don't. I mean, there are hearing officers that have really either have never ruled or maybe have ruled one time for a parent.
Mhm.
That
And
are there.
is that whether they're represented by an attorney, or is it just they don't like advocates representing parents? Or
No, whether it
doesn't matter who's representing the
It doesn't matter. There
Okay.
isn't, there doesn't matter. They just don't
Well-
find for parents.
what connection, is there a connection between the state school board agency, whatever that's called,
TASB, the Texas Association
Yes,
of School Boards.
which is so powerful? They're like the freaking FBI or something. I mean, they're so powerful. Is there a connection between them and either TEA or SOA, State Office of Administration?
I'd be honest,
Are they
what I
calling the
find for
shots?
TEA, I think is the lapdog. I'm gonna put this out there. I think TEA is the lapdog for the Texas Association of School Boards.
Yep.
I just think they see their position as just maintaining the status quo. To
Mhm.
be honest, I would be perfectly fine if that agency was eliminated.
What, the school board or the TEA?
Well, I can't eliminate Texas Association of School Boards. The school boards are going to be there. The state education agency, the Texas Education Agency, isn't doing their damn job. I think I would be perfect. They are not protecting students. They are not doing their job. I'm really okay if that organization is no longer funded and they're out of business.
Well, they do so
I've
many
had it
other
with it.
things, though. They do teacher certifications and all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah, well,
as
yeah.
it relates to special education, they ought to get
they're
out.
not doing their job.
They ought to get out of the business. Yes.
They're not out of their job, and the legislature ought to defund them.
Yeah, well,
They
we'll
ought to
have to-
defund them for that. And we need to start over. The system in Texas is broken and
Mhm.
nobody gives a damn.
And we continue to elect people from people who don't give a damn, people who like the status
Well,
quo.
what we have is we have people here that like, oh, well, we support the schools. Oh, the parents come out and they support the schools, and
Mhm.
I see parents going out and saying they support the schools, they support the principals, whatever,
Mhm.
and they don't know what the hell goes on. They don't. The PTOs are not doing their job. They're dominated by people that certainly don't know anything about special ed,
Mm-mm.
and they're not and then I see administrators of the schools controlling what comes out of the PTO's mouth,
Mhm.
and dominate there. We have a broken system in this state. We need to start over. We need to have hearing officers that are fair-minded.
Mhm.
Some of them are,
Mhm.
but almost half of them are not, in my opinion. I think when we
You
did
think term limits or something would help, Lou?
I think training is what they need to start.
Who are they
with.
going to get
And then
trained
that's a good question.
School
Who's going
boards.
Who's going to do it? I think they need to have better review of their actual judicial review of what their decisions are.
Who would review them?
There needs to be some
The
independent.
feds?
There needs to be an independent body that does it. But
Well,
I'm sure as hell don't want the TEA doing it.
Let's
It's
call
the
for it.
Fox. It's the Fox mining the hen house.
That's all the district is. Let's call for it, Lou. Let's put it together.
Well, that's something that we're considering, and we may do something like that in our subsequent sessions. But the truth of the matter is, at least what we've been able to do is we got the 2-year statute of limitations changed this time.
Mhm.
That's good. I'm telling parents across the country, you need to be proactive. You need to be proactive at your legislature, with your legislatures. You need to be proactive at the school board level. You need to do what you need to do to hold their feet to the fire,
Oh, that
including
school
if
board
that
level,
means by.
that's a joke. Oh, my.
Well, you need to put it out there. I mean, you need to make it public and do everything that you can to hold, and to display to the public of really what goes on in your district. By the way, one thing that I think is important regarding districts, at least here in Texas, I can't speak for other states. Every school district has to have their check register made public to every single expenditure they made. You can scrutinize that. Go on online and look online and see their check register every month and see how they're spending the money.
Is it just like you put in the school district and check register, or do you have to go
You
through
can
TEA somehow?
No, you don't do TEA. You can go right to the school district website and put in
Oh, okay.
check register, and it'll come up. You'll find very, very interesting things. You can find out, where their money's going. Look, believe it or not, we actually have done an hour.
Oh my
Okay?
gosh, that
today.
zipped by.
Didn't it? So, well, we got to have a little theme music here. So let's see
Well,
what
I
happens.
hope this was an interesting show for our listeners, Lou. You and I just were talking like we're, having a cup of coffee or something. I hope it's been interesting for the listeners.
Well, we hope so. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to do these shows and we have to put out all bad news. Well, or talk about
some
how
good
we have to
news.
sue people to get where they need to be. That's where we're at now.
And yeah, it is. And I want to say something. I've heard it before. Oh, that we just do this for money. Oh my Lord. My husband said, if that's the case, I probably make $3 an hour because I'm sure I make that much. Oh my goodness. We do not do this for the money. You have to have a heart for this. You have to be,
Passion.
It has to be a passion. We are not getting rich. On what I make, if I wasn't married with a husband who supports me, I couldn't support myself on what I make, and I do this full time. So I would just like to debunk that that lie that we don't do this. I don't do this for the money, and I know Lou, he's got a passion as well for the students with disabilities and their parents, and so yeah, just want to let you guys know that.
Thank you. It's absolutely true. Pat,
Mhm.
people want to reach out to you and they need your help. How do they get a hold of you?
It's very easy. My email is pfreeze, FREEZE @gmail.com. pfreeze@gmail.com.
Okay, that's good. And for me, it's National ARD Advocates @gmail.com. National ARD Advocates @gmail.com. If you have questions, comments about the show, go to SPED Radio, SPED Radio 103.5 @gmail.com. SPED Radio 103.5 @gmail.com. You can tweet me at Louis Narda, LOUISNARDA. The station works by making, donations. Just go to the website, cypressradio.org, and offer any amount that you can. Keeps the lights on, keeps the show running, and lets us continue what we're doing. By the way, this show is archived on my YouTube channel at SPED Radio, SPED Radio. So if you go to YouTube, you can watch the video of it. Anyway, my co-host, colleague, Pat Freeze, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we'll see you all on the radio and the internet. Have a good week.
Bye, everybody.